I want everybody to remember that this is being broadcast and recorded. To So remember that when you're making comments, etc. Everything you say and do can be heard by others. One of the things we're going to start with today is the consideration of the summary notes. That's the same as our meeting minutes, but technically, till this thing gets through being posted in the registry, we're going to technically call them summary. And has everybody read their minutes? Summary notes. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next. We're going to introduce Dr. Rex Peebles. Rex, there you are. Okay. I want to thank Rex because he has not officially started work yet. He doesn't do that till the early part of next month. But I thought it would be good, since we wouldn't get a chance to see him until then our January meeting, if he would mind coming. He agreed to come, and we thank you for that. Tell you a little bit about Dr. Peebles. He comes to the coordinating board for Midland College, where he served as vice president of instruction. Prior to his tenure at Midland, he served 8 years as dean of social and behavioral sciences at Austin Community College. So coming back home again, huh? He has more than 30 years administrative and teaching experience and holds a doctorate in government from the University of Texas at Austin, a Master of Arts in Political Science from UT Arlington, and a Bachelor's in Political Science from UT Dallas. And we want to welcome you to this group, and we'd like to hear a little bit from you and what you think of what's going to be going on with your job. Anything special you'd like us to know?
Well, thanks for having me here today, and I appreciate that. And I look forward to actually coming and working full time for you and students in the state of Texas, and trying to ensure their success through their educational careers and beyond. So I really look forward to working with all of you. Some of you already know already, and so some of you have known for some time, and so it's good to recognize faces. And as I told another crowd recently, they're still pretty friendly, and I hope they stay that way. But I do look forward to working with everyone. I think that there's a lot of opportunity in the coming years to really pursue what's generally referred to as the success agenda in Texas, and I think the coordinating board has some opportunity and and even some clout to help facilitate that in a way that can make things like transfer and transitions for students better, that can help them get through their education, whether it be from adult basic education through developmental and on through Associate of Applied Science degrees or associate degrees, and then on to baccalaureate and beyond to graduate school if that's where they want to wind up. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to help facilitate that in the coming years and help them get to where they want to be. And so I'm still in that phase where I don't really know that much about my job yet, but I suspect that in the next month or so I'll learn more about it than I can possibly absorb. So, but I do look forward to it. I really do.
Yes, David.
I just wanted to add, Rex has been very enthusiastic about helping us out before he officially works. Not only is he coming to this meeting, the association was kind enough to invite him to the dinner with the trustees and our board members, and he came down for that. He came down and met with our community college liaisons a full day. So he's put in a fair number of hours already, and you may not know that he actually drives here. So he spends many hours just coming and going. So I think we see that real commitment and already to the role and understanding the importance of developing great relationships and with everyone in the field. So I think we're very encouraged by his early enthusiasm already.
Commissioner, do you have anything you want to say?
No, I'll only say that welcome and look forward to the work of this group and addressing some of the challenges we have in our two-year institutions.
Occurs to me, I should say one other thing. I did say this to the liaisons. I've said it in a number of places, but I haven't said it yet. We had an incredible pool of applicants. Rex rose above a great pool. We had people that were similar to him in terms of being vice presidents for instruction. We had people that were deans, both at community colleges and universities. We had people that were or have been presidents. So this was a tough pool, and he was the clear choice. So I just want to make clear that, while he's obviously a great candidate, he wasn't the only great one, and he rose above many people that were outstanding. So we were really excited.
Well, very good. Thank you so much for being here. Next item on the agenda, it's what I call kind of getting to know the coordinating board staff. This is something that I thought at least I would benefit from, and I figured the rest of you would too on the board, and that is getting to know the staff members. We hear their names. I think we need to know more what they do and totally understand. At least I need more understanding than I had coming in. But I've asked Linda if she would be the first one. Hi, Linda. Linda is Associate Commissioner and Chief of Staff at the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. She's worked at the Coordinating Board for over 13 years. And as Associate Commissioner, Chief of Staff reports directly to the Commissioner of Higher Education and provides executive level support to the Commissioner and the Board. She oversees the Commissioner's office, including the Office of External Relations, which is responsible for state and federal governmental relations, media relations, stakeholder engagement. She is the primary point of contact for all matters pertaining to the Board and the Commissioner's office, and is the primary point of contact to the Governor's office and the Texas House Appropriations and Senate Finance Committee. Just hearing all that, I know much more about her than I did, and the Commissioner, when I was in town last time, told me just how good she was and what a great job she did, and I know he relies on her a lot. And so I'm going to ask Linda just to let us know a little bit about her and some of the things she does.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Flickinger and members. We appreciate your service to this committee. It's a very important committee, and I think you're going to do some really good work over the next several years in building that collaborative relationship with the coordinating board and two-year colleges. I appreciate this agenda item because that's the first step in creating these collaborative partnerships, is getting to know who you're dealing with and the roles that we play here at the coordinating board. So I really appreciate the opportunity. A little bit of background about myself. I'm originally from El Paso, and I moved to Austin to attend the University of Texas at Austin. Shortly after graduation, I started working as a legislative aide to State Representative Irma Rangel, who at the time was the chair of the House Higher Education Committee. I worked with her for 6 years, and I served eventually as her chief of staff and legislative director. In 2000, I made the transition over to the coordinating board, and I served as an assistant director for governmental relations. And the prior commissioner, Don Brown, is one who promoted me to assistant to the commissioner prior to Commissioner Paredes joining us in 2004. When Commissioner Paredes joined us, who is also a fellow El Pasoan, we got along really well and worked really well together, so he kept me on in that position. It was through his encouragement that I went back to get my graduate degree at the LBJ school and got my master's, and in 2007. And over those years, the commissioner has given me increasing responsibilities and different roles of here at the coordinating board, and I really appreciate his support. But as Associate Commissioner and Chief of Staff of the Commissioner's Office, I serve as one of 3 people of the Commissioner's senior leadership team. The other two include Deputy Commissioner David Gardner, who oversees the 3 divisions related to academic affairs, research, and workforce. The P16 Initiatives Division and the Planning and Accountability Division. And then Dr. Arturo Alonso, who serves as the Deputy Commissioner for Finance and Administration. He sees the business side of the house as well as student financial aid. And the 4 of us together work on a number of issues, and particularly the strategic direction of this agency. I also work very closely with our board. I serve as their primary point of contact. So we have regular communications with our board leadership in particular. We have biweekly conference calls that the commissioner, deputy commissioners, and myself participate in, and our general counsel as well. And we keep the board informed through email and so forth on any major issues or developments, and particularly during the legislative session. So I also oversee our External Relations Department, which serves as a liaison to the Texas legislature, as well as the media and Congress and federal agencies. External Relations is headed up by our Senior Director, Dominic Chavez, and they do a number of things related to the legislature, preparing testimony before the legislature for the commissioner and key staff. We monitor, analyze, summarize higher ed legislation. We also develop and implement strategies to work more closely with our stakeholders and to improve our communications internally and externally. So we are in the process of developing a better collaborative partnership with our institutions of higher education. We're increasing those communications. We're holding governmental relations briefings prior to every board meeting, every board committee meeting, so that we have an opportunity to discuss the agenda items that are going before our board members, answering any questions, addressing any issues. Staff in the other divisions are holding more conference calls to have those communications occur more regularly in the rulemaking process. And we've seen a lot of success in that. Our motto now really is no surprises. We want to be as transparent as possible in the work that we're doing here at the coordinating board, and we want to work together as partners, equal partners to all of our institutions. I also serve as a primary point of contact for the Governor's Office, the House Appropriations Committee, and Senate Finance Committee. I work with staff, although I'm not the lead person in developing the LAR. I am the lead during the legislative session and making sure that our budget priorities get through. And I report out to the board the updates during that session and the outcomes. I also, many years ago, was appointed to serve as the Alternative Dispute Resolution Coordinator, and back then it really didn't require a whole lot of coordinating. But with our Sunset Bill, Senate Bill 215 requires us to engage in negotiated rulemaking on particular issues. And so I'm now taking the lead on organizing that whole process. And in fact, we're starting our negotiated rulemaking committees. We have 4 of them meeting next week on compliance monitoring, which is a new function that came from our Sunset Bill to oversee the compliance of the use of state financial aid dollars at our institutions of higher education, as well as verifying enrollment data, which is used to develop the formulas. I also served as the lead staff on the Sunset Review process and Senate Bill 215. So we're in the process of implementing a lot of those procedures, and I've been reporting back to the board on how we're doing on those fronts. That sort of sums up my role here at the coordinating board. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? George?
Linda, thank you very much for coming. I do have a question because you mentioned something that piqued my interest, and that is compliance, dealing with verification of enrollment and recalculation of the new formulas, that type of thing.
Yes.
Where do you see that going? How is that going to be structured, and what kind of impact is that going to have on our institutions?
Well, actually, we established that function about a year ago. This was an original recommendation from the Sunset Commission, and the commissioner thought that this was a really good recommendation and was eager to implement it. So we got a jump start on implementing it, and we hired 2 FTE to get the office going, to get the function going. We went to the legislature for an exceptional item request, and that helped us fund 4 FTE. So right now, while we have policies and procedures in place for that, and we've actually done some of the functions already at some of the institutions of higher education, we're formalizing those rules, which are pretty prescriptive in Senate Bill 215. And we've created this negotiated rulemaking committee that is composed of 28 members who represent all sectors of higher education, 2-year, 4-year, health-related institutions, public and private. And they're going to be meeting on Tuesday to discuss those specific rules regulating the compliance monitoring function. I think the impact is going to be, and I may want to invite the commissioner because he's got his personal views on this. I think it's definitely a big impact on higher education and institutions, and ensuring that those dollars are being used in accordance with statutes and coordinating board rules, and ensuring that the enrollment data is accurate. And David may also want to weigh in on the enrollment data piece of it, because we do need more safeguards in ensuring that the data that's reported to us is accurate, because we do oftentimes have inaccurate data that comes to us even after institutions certify that it's accurate.
No, I just will underscore what Linda said. I feel very strongly that that this is a very important function. We want to make sure that data are submitted accurately. We've had a couple of instances. I won't say it's common, but it's happened enough that David and I have been concerned about it. Where we've when there were ultimately very specific financial consequences to the data reported, we've had institutions contact us and tell us, well, the data that we submitted wasn't accurate, although it had been certified. And we need to make sure that the data that we get are as precise as they can be from the very beginning. So we think that this is one way of monitoring that. We don't want to be punitive. We just want to make sure that institutions understand that there are significant consequences in the use of these data, and that they need to be accurate.
One historical note that's related, some of you have been around long enough to remember when the state auditor actually audited the enrollment data, and they haven't for many years now. And so I think this will be helpful. I don't think we're anticipating that anyone will have done anything nefarious or deliberate, but it will be an opportunity to point these issues out. And as you know, there are limited pools of dollars, and the data that comes in distributes those dollars.
Yeah, data have consequences.
So, and even more so in with the community college sector with the success points, it's going to be even more critical, I think. So I don't believe this will be onerous. Anytime you have people coming in from another organization, it sort of creates a little bit of a ripple, but I don't think it's something where people should be fearful. I think it's a collaborative process. It won't be anything you're not familiar with other folks coming in and looking at things. We actually have one auditor of one type or another in our offices almost every day of the year, it seems, so we understand how that can feel. But I think the negotiated rulemaking is a really good process because everybody's at the table and they really know what the rules are. It's very transparent, although the legislation, as Linda was saying, was very directive. But we hope if you happen to have people that are on that body that's going to be looking at the rules, that you make sure they keep you in the loop, that they let you know what's going on, because this is the opportunity to make sure that you're engaged. And if there's something that we have some latitude that would make sense, we really want to take that into account, make it that kind of change, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, we had a very, very positive experience since our last meeting, and having Susan Brown come down to Galveston and work with Dr. Root down there. I thank you, Commissioner Paredes, and David, also you, for causing that to occur. It was very productive. And what it pointed out is that there was some confusion. It also pointed out that perhaps some of the data was in need of coordination, so that we know that it's correct and we know that it's right. That's going to be very, very important for every institution, regardless of what type of institution it is. And the one thing I would encourage is to over-communicate with the presidents and our VPs of institutional effectiveness, so that any change that results as a result of the work you're doing is known early and completely.
Will do.
That's good. That's
Committed
good
to that.
advice. We
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Well, and I appreciate that you acted so quickly on responding to George's concerns at the last meeting.
Yeah, I'm sorry didn't follow through as quickly as I said we would on the pictures, but we're working on that.
Well, and that was the next thing I was going to bring up. George came in here, and we walked in together, and before you knew it, he was there. Gary and I were sitting up here, and he was there, with his camera. I thought, now what is he taking our pictures for, and what's he doing? Well, he was trying to get around getting us in it, because he was taking pictures of this picture here, okay? So we're all pleased with that.
And I've already sent it down to Galveston. We're real pleased with it.
Okay. So we appreciate this. Commissioner and I were talking just briefly before we started, and that so much of this is about communicating together. And I think we're starting to get that process going. And I feel much better than I did 2 months ago or 4 months ago, okay? All righty. Linda, thank you so much. And I appreciate that, all the help you gave me on getting the charge and everything and working on that. So thank you. Speaking of communication, one of the things I was thinking about was, I think it's not only necessary for us to get to know the staff better, I think it's good for the staff to know kind of where community colleges are a little different than 4 years, and maybe understand us a little bit better. And I had asked William if he would do a presentation on something that is more community college role rather than just education. And he was going to do it, and then ran into a little problem because he was out of town. So he said, I think I can make it to the meeting, but I won't be able to have the presentation. So we moved that on to Mark then. So Mark, you want to give us your presentation?
However you'd like, I can. Sure, I'll just. Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's my honor to be here to fill in for my dear friend and colleague to my right. Hey, that's what we do. We hand the ball off, and let's see how far we can advance it down the field. I love the football metaphor. I use it every day. This morning, it's my pleasure to talk to you about a couple of projects over at Del Mar College that are well underway, and I think you will find very intriguing. We're going to focus particularly on the Harold T. Branch Academy for Career and Technology Education. This is a collegiate high school experience, a very unique program. We believe is one of its kind in the state so far. The principal of the school told me yesterday, Tuesday, that yesterday was not Tuesday, was it? No, okay. Anyway, Tuesday that she is applying for a TEA designation as the first career and technology education collegiate high school. We don't think there's any other like it. We just happened to find that out. That's not why we brought this to you, but it's just one more little attribute to this phenomenal project. But at Del Mar College, we are home to two cutting-edge early college concepts. The first, which has been around for some time, is the collegiate high school model. And it is a collegiate high school, which is probably similar to many of you all's. This is just has been a phenomenal partnership with Corpus Christi Independent School District. And I think we're in the 6th year now, and we continue to see many, many students cross the stage. And I'm going to share a little bit about where we're going with this project and how that's evolved and how we've built on it and launched into the Harold T. Branch Academy for Career and Technology. As you might expect, the collegiate high school is definitely preparing students for all aspects of the college, to include transfer. And many of our students, of which there are 100 in each class, it's a school of approximately, it's a little bit more than 400 students, are selected from around the community. Again, I'm talking about the collegiate high school right now. We're not talking about choosing students that are on the top 5%, but I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, at the end of the year, and at the end of their careers, they're performing as well or better than those students in the top percentages of their classes. There's no transportation that is brought. This campus is located on site at Del Mar College's East Campus. We're having tremendous outcomes. There's been a very low absence rate, a high graduation rate. We're just talking about a group of some very, very high performers. Many of these students have successfully transferred to Rice, Baylor, UT, A&M College Station, A&M Kingsville, Corpus Christi. St. Mary's has come down with hundreds of thousands of dollars in scholarships for the second year. I think last year they came down with, I'm fairly certain it's $900,000 in scholarships just for this one group. And they are taking these students literally by the carload up north or to San Antonio. So, and they are also attending universities all over the United States as well. We know that one of our students from collegiate high school went on to the engineering program here at UT and entered at 18 years old. And last we heard was just a few weeks ago, continues to do very, very well. We also know that we had one of our students enter medical school at 21 years old just this past fall. And so we are seeing locally, these are our hometown heroes. Our students that are taking full advantage of this wonderful program and taking it to the limits that we are seeking and expecting of them. Moving on to the next slide, getting into the reason the primary focus of this report is the Harold T. Branch Academy of Career and Technology. Just a little backdrop, economic backdrop. Several years ago, certainly the recession has hit the entire state, but if you know about the Eagle Ford Shale oil field play in South Texas, you know that things are changing dramatically. And in our service area, we are so blessed. And not all of it's in the tax base, I've got to qualify this, but much of the $36 billion in investment coming, $36 billion in investment coming, is coming to our area to reap the natural gas supply and obviously the oil and condensates coming from the oil fields to build an industrial structure that is just hard to conceive. Coming from a refinery town, there's just some amazing things happening with the Chinese, the Danes, the Koreans, the Italians, certainly the Americans' investment of huge infrastructure coming. And frankly, we simply do not have enough employees to meet their needs. And I'm just very grateful that they're not completely built out yet. But so much is happening. The oil fields and the secondary markets located on the bay that are going to be receiving that natural gas it's just crazy right now. That's the best way I could put it. But just last week, we formally dedicated the Harold T. Branch Academy in the community as a joint venture with Corpus Christi Independent School District. The dollars were derived from a 2008 bond supported by the Corpus Christi voters. It's approximately 22,000 square feet of standard and specialized classrooms for science and computer labs. Branch focuses on the unique aspect of providing students with the opportunity to make critical choices in their education, as you might expect. Research confirms this opportunity for choice has a direct correlation to the student's achievement in higher education. Again, the thrust with all of this is giving options and reaching to the students' creativity and inner desire for motivation, and it's just one more choice for them, and they are taking great advantage of it. Those choices range from business administration, such as accounting and court reporting, to technical courses such as avionic technology, computer programming, and GIS systems. We also have basic firefighter training, diesel and automotive mechanic specialists, and even biotechnology courses that are being offered there. Just a little side note: our biotechnology students go on to compete with students at the Berkeley Lab, Berkeley Laboratory of Biotechnology, and every year, and other national competitions. And our students that are being pulled from these programs are winning at these national levels and beating students from Stanford, Rice, and all the other high-performing research institutions. And so this is one more feeder to our already award-winning biotechnology program. The Branch Academy is for students seeking job training and certifications. Students take classes both at the Academy and at our nearby Del Mar College's West Campus, just a short distance away. The only reason it wasn't built on the West Campus, we had ample land, was because of a different school district zone, and we missed it by a quarter mile, so otherwise I would have recommended this campus be built on site at our West Campus. But students choose a career pathway and are required to fulfill all certification requirements along the way. Let's go to the next slide. The Harold T. Branch Academy is a total immersion career training experience. The entire academy simulates a modern-day workplace. For one, the students are not called students. They are called associates, and they wear uniforms every day. When they apply for admission, the application process mirrors that of applying for a job. And so it's really, really neat to see. And when you go on campus, these students are walking around, and it is like a mini corporate campus, much like you would find here. In many of the 3Ms and Dells of so forth of here in Austin. The associates are not, or the student, in this case, the associates are not enrolled. They are hired for a 9-week quarter at a time. At the end of the quarter, they are given a performance evaluation that involves their families as well as the academy staff to gauge their commitment to the program. So it's some really, really high standards. And again, I'll tell you, these students are stepping up like beyond our own expectations. Productivity and attendance and employability skills are also closely monitored, as you might imagine. Of course, we all know, if we can go to the next slide, things don't happen without leadership. And I brought this picture of this very lovely lady, and a dear friend of mine, actually one of my high school classmates, actually, is Dr. Tracy Rodriguez, is the principal both of Collegiate High School and Harold T. Branch. She is in terms of leadership, she is the heart, soul, and brain of the operation. And I have to brag on my high school classmate. She is a star, an absolute star, and loves these students and faculty and staff, and works tremendously well with us. She is a Corpus Christi Independent School District principal, and sometimes we just can't tell the difference. She is so involved. We don't know we just know she works for the students like we do, and I just have to give her kudos. So if anybody wants any contact information or anything for the future, please let me know, and we'll connect you with Tracy. She's a phenomenal person. Next slide, please. Just quickly, the application says it all. The Branch Academy application is, as it's circled there, it's a school for workforce. We are preparing for the workforce demands and needs that are again, growing every day. Just a little quick side note. When this, and yes, that we can go to the next slide. That'll help. That'll be my conclusion for my relatively quick presentation. But let me say, when this program was being put together with Corpus Christi Independent School District and Del Mar College, this was prior to HB 5. Okay. And so there was a lot of consternation, and yet, we knew we had the idea down, and we started talking about this in 2008, or really started putting pencil to paper in 2008 and 2009, really. And we thought that there may be some limitations, but I have to give it to the Corpus Christi Independent School Board, Independent District, CCISD School Board, and their desire to continue moving forward, even though they knew at the time the legislation was such that it would be a little tight and we would have to be creative in our approach. Well, let me just say the timing could not have been more perfect. We opened this semester, coming in off the heels of HB5, as has opened up opportunities for our students to explore more in the career and technical paths. And that board, took a great leap of faith and asked us all, in addition to the Del Mar Board of Regents, to continue moving forward several years before it came to fruition, and to move it forward as it has been moved forward. It's just been a wonderful outcome. One thing we know, as we've opened up this past fall, one thing we know is that our students, we expect these students of the Branch Academy graduates to be among Del Mar College's first technical graduates earning a median income of $57,221. That is $6,000 more than a first year out of four-year college on average. Again, the timing could not have been better with the industrial backdrop that I described earlier. Students are coming out of this, and what we're also hearing is that the students are preparing for the oil field and or related industrial technologies, because when you're working in the oil field, you're not just a roughneck. You can be involved in technology, you can be involved in accounting and all legal, you can be involved in all of the fields that are mentioned here, as you all well know. And but it is interesting to know, it's interesting to see the large corporations coming forth and showing interest, and already bringing scholarship money for these students, already branding this school as their own. Trafigura is one of the petrochemical companies that has come forward to already bring tens of thousands of dollars in scholarships well in advance. And we suspect that that's just the beginning of many, many great things to come for the Harold T. Branch Academy for Technical and Career, the CATE program. Okay, I apologize. It's been a long drive this morning, but anyway, HTB, as we call it, is doing well, and those students are surpassing their own expectations. We also hear that some of those students are again, these were students that many of them were students that were just kind of trying to find themselves, but have found themselves at this location. They've found a comfortable nest, like I like to describe it as, and they've been so welcomed, and they are already talking about entering the workforce and expanding their education, taking this education, already talking about medical school, law school, and all kinds of other things that are being motivated by these technical programs. So it's interesting. It's an interesting concept that's coming to fruition, and we certainly invite anybody and everybody from around the state to come and see firsthand, and we would be glad to give you all a tour. So I'll be glad to answer any questions at this point.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Mark, I'm not sure I understand the distinction between a high school and this academy.
Yes. It is a chartered high school, and it is part of CCISD.
High school is.
Yes.
And the academy is distinct in what sense?
It's unlike the collegiate high school in the sense that the collegiate high school is primarily focused on the completion of the degrees, primarily of the associate degrees of AAS and AA degrees. The academy is focused more along the way, is gathering certifications along the way. And so any time spent, the students may or may not complete a degree, although the encouragement is we encourage every one of them to try to finish a degree. But absolutely along the way, completion is met by way of certification in their respective fields.
I wanted to mention to this group, it's just a heads up because we have a lot of work to do, but Commissioner Michael Williams, Commissioner Andre Alcantar from the Texas Workforce Commission and I are working on developing a series, at the beginning, just a handful of early college high schools that have a specific technical education focus. It would have CT, but it would be very much like the academy, in that they would finish not with an associate's degree, but with some kind of certification.
Yes, and or both.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. The other thing is that this curriculum that we've shown was very much guided by the past. In other words, we were building this curriculum that it takes a long time, so we didn't just put it together over the summer. So the point is with that we're going to expand it. Already we're looking at exploring some things in the music technology program, as well as welding. Welding was one of the initial programs that we had looked at, but because we weren't too sure, we did not include it to the full scale. But welding is included in here. So my point is with this curriculum is a launching point. What we're showing here should expand. We're looking forward to it expanding, and it is the buzz around town for sure.
I think, given what Raymond said, I'm not familiar with this program, so I'm sorry we didn't hear about El Paso. I know about El Paso, but this is a new program to me, and it seems that Rex, maybe soon after you get here, that you and some of our staff ought to go down and visit.
Oh,
and
love it.
To learn about this, if we can work out a mutual time, because I think it would help everyone to learn about it.
This was the actual physical structure was in a property that Corpus Christi Independent School District owned, and it was an old elementary school that had been razed, and they brought up a first-class institution. The building mirrors the structure of the architecture of the Del Mar College's West Campus. It was very purposeful, yet they still maintain their own integrity. So it was a wonderful project, and I'm so proud to have been a part of it from the ground floor. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Mark, this is very exciting. How physically distant is the academy from your West Campus? What's the geographical?
It's less than a quarter mile.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So transportation isn't an issue.
No, we're busing students back and forth. That we have a van. CCISD carries them back and forth if they need that sort of thing. So all those little logistical things matter absolutely. And but it is very close. They could actually walk, but
Right.
we do provide transportation for them.
And the other follow-up question I have, just to clarify, is the 22,000 square feet, that's the academy itself?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And that was built as a charter high school?
Yes,
and
ma'am.
then they're utilizing your existing labs on your West
Absolutely.
Campus?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
So they attend in both places, and whereby we have that industrial infrastructure, or the technical infrastructure in the labs, they're just right down the street for them.
And I could given the question, if any of the other institutions present here would like to visit, maybe we could coordinate so that you don't have visit after visit, and because we really want to just go and find out about it. So if you could let us know if any of your institutions would like to join in on that, we could coordinate it in a way that we all show up at the same time and we can match it to everyone's schedules. Just let, in the meantime, let Gary know until
We'll get together.
Rex
Gary.
gets here.
We would love to host you all.
Now, Mark, how many semesters, periods, whatever, are from start to finish?
It is the same. Although they're broken up in that quarter setup, it is the same amount of time as if they were entering the 9th through 12th grade.
Okay.
And so they have all that time to achieve as many certifications as possible.
It is structured to where when they finish this, besides the certifications, they also have a high school diploma?
Yes. Yes.
And in this program, is there included any academics
Oh, yes.
that are commensurate with dual credit, so that maybe an associate's degree comes at this period, or they'd have to enter Del Mar to get the associate's degree?
Well, there's on the core side, there are some, and our intention is to expand that. We've really focused on that technical dual credit application. Some of the core is. I don't know the full extent of that, to be honest with you. I'll have to get you some background. I know some of it is, but the idea is for them to again, any class upon qualification that they can achieve dual credit, the idea is for them to earn that credit and for us to provide it for them.
This question was asked at our Regents meeting last night about the dual credit in the technical arena.
Yes.
And there seems to be still some fuzziness there that needs to be defined as to what truly will qualify as dual credit in the technical arena. There's
Yes.
no doubt in the, I mean, obviously it's obvious in the academic arena, but in the technical, the more clarity we can get on that as to what will qualify. It's important to us too. We just completed an advanced technology center in Galveston, and we're doing the same similar kind of thing at the college level, though not at the high school level, but we're talking to the high school now. This is fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a great attribute to the community and certainly an attribute to Dr. Scott Elliff and his leadership as superintendent of CCISD.
You know, I appreciate, thanks for filling in on that. I think there's so many programs probably going on because of the technical becoming much more a part of the education and the early college, high school things. I think the more we can know about this, because people have maybe their own thing going, but nobody else knows about it, and we can make things easier and better for everybody. So I thank you for appreciating the presentation.
Well, we as I said, the three commissioners are interested in expanding early college high schools with a CTE focus. I've spoken to a couple of community college presidents. We're just trying to get some basic information about how this might work. I spoke to Richard Rhodes a couple of days ago. And as we get a clearer idea of where we're going to get the money to establish these schools, we'll pass that along. Probably what we'll do is we'll have an RFP and we'll ask for proposals to establish these schools, and we'll take into account a number of factors like location. The Texas Workforce Commission will give us information about particular regions of the state that seem to be best prepared to launch these kinds of programs. We'll make this. We would make the competition open to technical colleges as well as community colleges, but we're excited about the prospect. We have a long way to go before we go public with it, but we're working on it.
I'd like to just give one little story and promise not take but a couple minutes. And the early college high school, Richard Rhodes had been at an Achieving the Dream presentation the first time I was at, and I saw how well he was doing, especially with his Hispanic program. And I was hearing from our ISDs within our college, particularly Pasadena School District, that there were so many Hispanic students, and you just couldn't teach them. And I saw what Richard was doing, and I thought, you know, Richard certainly had a bigger Hispanic population than we did at the time in Pasadena. So I was able to get those two guys together so that our superintendent could see, hey, you really can teach. And
Never heard anybody say that before.
well, that was the thought around our community pretty much, okay? But anyway, they got together, and Pasadena School District then took their lowest rated school, which was also their highest poverty school. They had 15 to 20% that spoke no English at home. They had 85% that were in the poverty level. And we started an early college high school with them. We're doing it now. We're in our third year. And they didn't take the cream of the crop students. I mean, they took at-risk students, which is mostly what they had anyway. And those students have been able to test out on the testing with higher grades, percentages, than their school, than the entire district, which included higher level students, and then the state of Texas. And that to me just gives me goosebumps when you've got students that pretty much people have given up on and working a program like that with the community colleges. And the superintendent, Kirk Lewis, told me that the year we started that, I think just the year before that, they quit funding for the early college high schools. the state had been giving them some funding. And I think that's something maybe we could look at. And I know you've had a very successful program on the early college. And I keep hearing from others, that's one area that we would like some help on and trying to get some funding back on that. Okay. Anyway, let's break for lunch. And we've got a couple pretty long things to talk about on here. So I'd ask, does anybody mind if we try and keep lunch to 15 or 20 minutes at the most? Okay? Okay. We'll adjourn for lunch. Thank you. One of the things I should have done at the very beginning of this meeting was want to be able to introduce people. All of you can see who we are, but I'd like if we could start maybe with Gary and have everybody here introduce themselves and what they do. Oh, start with her. Okay. Okay.
He needs a lot of watching.
And if we can get David to introduce himself. There's working so hard, yes, okay. And sir, who were you that was waving your hand?
I'm Ray Garcia, president of Texas.
Okay. Yes. Yes, Linda? And this is your second meeting you've been at? Yes. Okay. Very good. Okay. Now I'm just going to cover the meeting that I had with Fred Heldenfeld, who used to chair the coordinating board, and we now have Harold Hahn has been appointed as the new chair. And I met with them because I had some questions or suggestions or stuff on the charge that has to be filed with the state. And I would tell you, I think the meeting went fantastic. One of my big worries, quite frankly, was the major changeover we would have next year, losing a third of our board, losing Mark, and then getting a new chair also. And after the three of us met, and Mark was going to meet with us, but she got tied up with the president's, right? Yes. But we were on the phone 4 or 5 times, I think, in between time. And then after the meeting with the two gentlemen, they then met with you, I think, Commissioner, Linda, your legal person?
Yes,
Okay. Anybody else? Or?
I think that's it.
And went over the stuff that we'd gone over. And frankly, I think things turned out quite well. One of the things that also bothered me was the fact that a person could serve on the board, say like Mark, and have 1 year and not be able to be reappointed until after 3 more years. And I think we've got some serious work here we can do. I feel very optimistic we're going to get a lot done. But part of it is we need some consistency in our people. And I had suggested adding 1 year to everybody's term. And Fred suggested adding 3 years to the term. So that was done. And also the provision on you'd have to wait 3 years to be reappointed. I had suggested that they would be able to reappoint at any time, but that the board would reappoint. And if they thought it was somebody that, it should be on the board, then they could reappoint. Quite frankly, I think just about everything. One thing was on there that I'd suggested, and they said they couldn't do it because of a certain statute, and they certainly know more about it than I do. That one did not go. They did rewording. I know we were concerned because of the wording on each district that we would have to draw up a 5-year plan for each district. The wording on that is totally changed. I had sent you everything we were suggesting, and it didn't change much for it from what we sent into them, except that, like I said, they gave a longer term than I thought. They also had made the chair and the vice chair roles for 2 years. Let me see. If a member drew a 1-year term, is the way it was worded now, in June 2013, then that member is hereby reappointed to the committee for a term to expire June 1st, 2017. We put in that we will meet at least quarterly. I told them we're meeting every 2 months, but we made it at least quarterly because, say, something happens in 1 month just isn't going to work out for whatever reason, then we have the flexibility to put it off an extra month. They also talked the number of council members shall not exceed 24, and that would be evenly divided. It will not be less than 12 and no more than 24. And I think those are some of the main issues on it, but you were all given copies of it. Hopefully you've gotten it. Did you see anything in there that you'd like to change?
No, ma'am.
Anybody else? Okay. Now, we don't vote on this. The board votes on it, and they'll do that at their January meeting. And Linda, am I missing anything? Okay. Pardon me?
Is this our new name?
Well, I guess that we can vote on it. Well, I would tell you, Fred and Harold wanted that name. Fine with me. How about you?
Well, I think I'm the one that proposed it, so yeah, so I like it.
Okay. All right. So that's our new name, right? Okay. Any other questions on that? Any questions about the meeting? It went very well. Yes.
I guess I just have a clarifying question. I'm not quite sure I understand the terms. One meeting we drew 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
So now it is everybody 3?
If a member drew a 1-year term, they now go to 2017.
Okay. If they drew a 2-year term, they still have a 2-year term. And if they drew a 3-year term, they still have a 3-year term. Okay.
Technically, okay.
Thank you.
Linda, isn't it actually everybody starts with a 3-year term now?
Since this is the first group, and we want to go to staggered terms, what we added was the language about the 1-year term. That person would automatically be reappointed to a 3-year term, so it'd be a 4-year term. I think the oversight has been on the 2-year term for those who drew a 2-year term. We could automatically reappoint them through these rules and just say if a member drew a 1-year or 2-year term. That sound good, David?
Yeah.
This first time is really an anomaly because we have to have staggered terms. I think you raised a real issue, and so I think we understand, and we simply will put into place something so that people who have the short terms now, the board will officially do the reappointment, but recommend that to the board, and I would imagine they'd approve. After then, it won't be an issue because everybody will be on sort of a different ending point. Then we'll just appoint a new person to fulfill that person so that the staggered terms won't all end at the same time. That was all that was trying to be accomplished the first time. So I think this is a one-time thing. I think it's fixed going forward. But the main thing is that to give those of you with a 1-year term, 2-year term, opportunity to do a full 3-year term, and this fixes that.
But the 3-year won't begin until after the first year? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So it will mean, that in effect, you'll get a 4-year term.
And the 2-year will have a 5-year term.
I have
Unless you just don't want to do it anymore. You have the option to not continue if you want, but we'd like to give you the opportunity if that's.
I have one other question relative to terms. So then if somebody resigns in the middle of their term and someone is reappointed, are they reappointed to fill the unexpired term
Correct.
rather than a 3-year term?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And they'll also replace the type of institution that was vacated.
I saw that.
Right.
Yeah, and that also included. If they were representing a medium, they replaced with a medium. And I haven't sat and studied it, but we do represent all factions, right?
You represent the 2-year colleges. So
Okay, but
you
I
have
mean,
the community, technical, and state colleges.
But I mean regions, I'm sorry.
The geographical regions of the
Yes.
state. Right. So it's based on the accountability groupings. So you have small, medium, large, very large. So it's more in terms of the size and.
Okay.
And I think we hadn't conceived of this as you representing a district as you would, when you're elected to an office, but that you'll be aware of your institution, but generally you're here to speak for the state and the various sectors and not just your individual area, though you know more about that than.
Well, I don't think it has to be in the charter or anything, but I think philosophically, I know when Jen and I were working on coming up with people for the board of CAT, we also tried to make sure, that the small, medium, large were represented better because we had it heavier on some than others, and we want especially the medium one. I think we only had 1 or 2 people on medium, and we thought we need to bring that up because there was like 20-some medium. But Jen pushed, and I think rightly so, that we also take into effect the region because the president seemed to feel that, regions are different.
Yeah.
West Texas is much different than, the other. So I don't think we have to have anything in writing, but I think philosophically it'd be good to look at that when you're.
And I'd like to say that as this board, since I've been here, as always, when it's looked at committees, has looked at the regions and wanted to try to represent regions, but that in the membership, but not with the idea that they're there and everything they're saying has to just. They have to poll their region or anything like. But
No.
we believe that with every committee, and so I'm not sure with 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 215 if we have to put that specifically in rules, but that's usually staff will have to come up with something. And I know at one time years ago, my job was to look at this very issue with every committee we ever appointed: is how did it break down by sector, by region, to make sure that we weren't leaving out parts of the state.
Okay. And I think we all know we're supposed to be representing everybody. Right. Okay. And one of the things was the next thing, rather, I'm sorry, the discussion regarding the revising committee charge. I think you all got a copy of the revised rules. And Mimi had brought up the questions on that last time that we were going to address, but I think, Gary, you say there's more going on it, and you'd prefer to do that in January, correct? On the revised rules committee?
Oh, I think we're talking to the discussion on negotiated rulemaking being a future.
Yes.
An agenda item or request from the last meeting was negotiated rulemaking, and it's not on this agenda because we thought the time allotted for the meeting, we wouldn't have a chance to cover it. And so the plan was to put it on the next agenda. But Linda kind of gave a
Yes.
pretty good overview this morning whenever she was talking about her role and activities. Are you
That covers it. Okay. Okay, and Kristen, are you ready? You're going to give us an update on ABE, TSI, and the dual credit, right?
I can say that regarding dual credit, we don't have anything new to bring at this point.
Okay.
With regard to, I can speak a little bit about TSI and where we are with that and the ABE. TSI, as you know, the assessment has been rolling out this fall, and from what the College Board is hearing and our staff are hearing from institutions, that looks to be moving smoothly. As well, ABE, we were looking to do additional field testing for the ABE diagnostics, so that could be finalized within the year. And it looks like we've been getting good numbers. So thank you very much for your help on that. We look to be on track to have the diagnostic ready for use by the new academic year. Also, what we're seeing with the TSI, again, we're getting the beginning of data from test takers so far. I think we're looking at about, again, this is an estimate, about 10,000 test takers so far. So far, the ABE numbers, looks like most of the students who are falling into that category are scoring in the high range. So those would be students that would typically be through holistic advising placed into developmental education. Again, it's too early to give, we don't have hard numbers yet. I mean, we have nice, clean numbers, but we are getting more data every day, so we'll be able to say more soon. Which brings us to the ABE work that staff are doing with our partners at Texas Workforce Investment Council, Texas Workforce Commission, and TEA. We've continued to work with them as well as internally. As well, we had a series of webinars, I guess about a month ago. We got very good participation from our higher ed partners. Most of the questions were requests for professional development as a part of our ABE transition, as well as concerns about how this might be funded. These concerns we're bringing back to the table and integrating into our planning process.
One of the things we were told about the webinars, and I got calls from a couple people that were not able to get on to the webinar. I said it wasn't working correctly.
The first one, we had technical difficulties on the first one. We sent out an immediate correspondence to everyone who had signed up because there was an RSVP process, and let them know that we were going to have to reschedule it, which we did. So we corresponded directly with everyone.
Are those webinars available online?
I can check.
Okay. Are they? I saw somebody shaking their head.
Yes.
Okay. So they are available online?
Yes, and they were, again, I should say they, mostly it was call-in questions or comments. Again, if you remember, these were structured very much around a listening webinar to hear about concerns and as well as what folks were already doing on their campuses and input on what campuses wanted to be doing or this sort of thing. So we weren't providing a lot of information. Our job was to listen. So,
and can you tell us kind of the direction the questions were going?
Yes, I mean, a lot of them were really centered around a desire for more professional development in how to contextualize ABE skill instruction into existing coursework. So based on a lot of the Accelerate Texas models, as well as questions about how ABE coursework would be funded.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
I'm interested in knowing whether or not you can, and without holding you to it, if you can predict or see where things are going as far as where ABE is going to be focused, who's going to be providing it, and how much of the cohorts that place really low in the assessments given at entry to college are going to be moved over there. Are you beginning to see a pattern? Can you tell us what's going to be done, how it's going to work?
We are, at least so far, not seeing very many students testing at the lowest levels. And typically, students who would be testing at those levels would likely often be served through the federal programs, or often that would also be ESL students. Again, I'm speculating here. And typically, too, the lowest scoring students would be those who graduated through, if they completed high school, would be those who graduated through a special education curriculum, and so might well be better served through other agencies as opposed to through the community colleges per se.
I hear what you're saying, but our experience is such that we're spending lots of resources and we're having a fairly low percentage of success. I thought the idea was to find a better venue for those people and the resources necessary than having the community colleges basically spin their wheels with semester after semester after semester and no good success. Am I wrong? Have I got a misconception there?
That seems to be my perception as well. Again, for the lowest performing students, they were often going to be better served outside of the community college. I would agree with you. Yes.
And I agree with you on that, but your premise that you first made is that most of those lower performing students are the ones who would score lowest, don't even come to us. And
right.
I say that we are having a substantial number come to us who cannot do college work, and we're spending resources and time and effort. And is there a better method? And I think that's what you were looking at. Is there a better method to get ABE, improve those people before they come to us?
Well, and again, I think the ABE, whether we're talking about a federal funded program that is typically targeted at students who have not completed high school, who do not have either a GED or a diploma. And then you have students who are high school complete, who are their skill levels are lower than we would like for a success in either a developmental ed sequence or entering credit-bearing courses. Yes, there are very promising practices out there for serving students who need additional skill development that we would say are testing in ABE ranges. So that's different from, say, a labeled ABE student who's being served through a federally funded program. Does that help?
Can I add one thing? We need to remember that the experience the colleges have at this point is with tests that couldn't really identify students that were a long way from being college ready, not just 2 years, but a long way, students who are clearly adult basic ed because the tests had a floor. So students could be 2 years away from being ready for college and appropriately placed in developmental ed, or they could have been 10 years. there's some tests you're going to get there's a minimum score regardless of where you stand. With this test, we know better where they stand, and what's looking promising is that those that are showing up in ABE appear, and we've just gotten the numbers, we haven't had a chance to analyze them yet, appear to be clustered right at that sort of threshold of being developmental ed. And so those are some students that your institution may decide are really ready to go directly into what they've traditionally done. The problem then becomes those that are not, and we all know that we don't have enough resources. The communities don't always have the resources, and this is a piece, and let's just be honest, we're struggling with right now, and we're struggling in it with you guys as well. And we've had lots of conversations about how to do this. We have lots of conversations about even what should be happening next year based upon feedback we're getting. So we're going to have a conversation about part of this tomorrow morning. We have listened a lot, and when we first started this, we had thought, rightly or wrongly, that these students that you're describing that are so far away that that it could be the college option to say, look, you really need to go over and work with these folks. We don't have the resources to help you on that. But frankly, every community doesn't have those resources. Every school doesn't have the resources. Some of your schools have federal funds. Most do not. So we are going to continue to talk with you about this, and we think, at least at some level, that we have to find the immediate solutions to what we're doing, but they're longer term things we have to work for, because you're not going to get to where I think you want to be initially, and it may be, and we have to talk about this, we may not even be able to do next year what we thought we could do next year because we're not ready for it. I'm sorry, Mimi.
No, I just have a question. Is the term ABE, I mean, it's a little confusing because when I think of ABE, I think of federal programs like GED, EL Civics, ESL. And when I hear ABE used here, I'm not sure it's being used, it's necessarily synonymous with that.
This is why we try to be very careful to say ABE skill levels.
Well, who came up with ABE?
ABE is Judy or David or the commissioner would have to probably tell me, but it's been through statutory.
It's making the communication much more difficult on the subject to have those terms.
And that has been a recommendation to distinguish the two.
At least it is for me. Now, it may be not so confusing for practitioners, but
no, I do think it's a point of
ground, but I'm very confused.
It is a point of confusion that we've heard from the field, and this has also been put forward as something for us to address in the plan as well, the naming convention. Did you want to?
Madam Chairman, one of the things that I think that we may be missing is that we're testing right now in an academic format. We're testing for academic skills. And if someone is unable to test at a level that would put them into developmental ed, are we perhaps forgetting that these folks many times are excellent mechanics? And when I say mechanics, I mean technical type of skills, electrical, plumbing, welding, that kind of thing. And are we missing the point there? Should we also be assessing that? Should we be helping those folks find a career path that takes them into the technical education? And I haven't heard any comments about that particular issue.
Commissioner.
A couple of years ago, when I was chair of the statewide P16 Council, the chair of that council alternates between the Commissioner of Higher Education and the Commissioner of Public Education. And when I was chair, we addressed precisely that issue because we were looking at the growing number of students who require adult basic education. I think the standard definition is somebody above the age of 18 who lacks basic literacy and computational skills. We'll see if we can determine what the origin of the term is. But in any event, we at the state P16 council meetings for a year, we invited representatives of industry, trades, and we asked a very simple question: what is a minimal academic skill level that is required in your field to provide people a job that pays a living wage, and a job that these people could maintain at their level of competency? And the response we got over and over and over again was 8th grade. And if people can read and write and compute at the 8th grade, there are jobs like some of those that you mentioned where they could do okay. It's probably the case that that standard is perhaps a bit low now because things become more rigorous. But I conferred with colleagues at the coordinating board and said we need to develop some alternatives so that people, because of their life circumstances, the example I always use is a 30-year-old single mother who's reading at the 4th and 5th grade level, has 2-3 children to support. She needs a job that enables her to pay for her family, and we can't expect that reading is at the level that she is, that she's going to complete a GED and then is going on to get a credential in a 2-year institution. We need programs that allow those people to get into the workforce quickly, within a year, perhaps less. And we've been working on some of those. We've been working on some of those things. We are not going to propose. We're not going to do anything to throw those kinds of students under the bus. But one of the things that this TSI is making very clear to us, we're going to have to rethink the way we do some things in community colleges. I think it was President Serrata who said that we might have to consider admission standards in community colleges, because if it turns out that we have a significant number of students or prospective students applying to our community colleges who are reading at the 5th and 6th grade levels, and I think we will, once we have that diagnostic tool available to us, we have to ask ourselves, do we have the resources, financial, material, human, to help those students succeed? I don't know what the answer is. But yes, the question is, we're very concerned about those kinds of students, and we're very concerned about making sure that they have pathways available to them so that they can get jobs that pay a living wage. That's our goal.
And let me add one. Let's not forget that by law, Certificate 1 students are not required to be TSI ready. They don't have to take TSI. Now, some of your institutions would like to require that some students in Certificate 1s actually, in fact, go through developmental ed. So that's another issue we're having to deal with, is sort out part of that issue. But there is an avenue for them. And one of the programs that went into place because of that earlier discussion Raymond and his colleagues had was the Accelerate Texas, which is designed and has been very successful at our community colleges to take those students and get them 8th grade ready into a job directly through training at the community college. We just received from the Texas Workforce Commission $1 million additional dollars, and there are a number of community colleges are going to be added to that based upon that analysis. I've forgotten how many schools, 6 more campuses. But
were provided. Well, 6 were provided the funding to fund additional students.
Right.
So it's not additional colleges at this point, although we still have 29 campuses participating. And part of the suggestion we are getting both through the webinars and in our conversations with Texas Workforce Commission and others was really to provide training on these models, as well as the contextualized instruction and so forth, that do form the basis of the Accelerate Texas model throughout the state. And this is something that we are bringing back and putting into our plan as a suggestion. Again, we're working on finalizing a draft that we will then vet with you all, among other stakeholders in the state and really take it out to the colleges and to our agency partners in the associations and have a robust discussion about what is missing, what's not, where would it be difficult to implement, and so on, and to really get us working together on this issue. So that's
We've
in the
got to
next
be
few
data.
months.
Madam Chair, if I might, I hope this isn't a rabbit trail, but I heard during this discussion a notion offered that career and technical, any career in technical, may be less rigorous or less intellectually challenging than any academic. And I'd like to make sure that we all agree that there's basket weaving in the academic side and there's basket weaving in the technical side.
Agreed.
And that we have to be very careful, because I'll tell you, each one of us has technical programs at our school that people in this room would have trouble with.
Sure.
And so let's not step on that slippery slope.
And that's precisely why some of your colleagues have brought up the issue about the certificate ones. The legislation's very clear, but the reality is many of those programs, including some nursing programs, fit into that, and they do need rigorous preparation for those. And so keep finding another issue
Go ahead, Mimi.
I would just say that the gist of what I would take from this discussion, especially with the current law allowing exemption of testing for level 1 certificates, is that at the institutional level, you're probably best prepared to know how to best serve those students.
That's right.
Because we've had level 1 certificates where we need testing, and we have some where students have done well with being exempted from the test and still pursuing the level 1. It depends on what field you're going into, but they tend to work fairly well for us in the crafts area, and the students exit with very good wages and a way to make a living. So I would just encourage us to remember that one size will not fit all, and allow for the flexibility we need to serve our students.
And I have to concur with Mimi, and I truly believe that it's best served in the institution, in the local community, to have the flexibility to make those kind of decisions. One size does not fit all, and many times in our effort to try to standardize things, we end up with rigidness that we can't stand in our communities. I just want to make sure, though, that we recognize that there are people and students who have extremely complex minds that can think in the technical line, but not necessarily in the pure academic line. And that, yes, there are skills that mesh and that go together, and you can't do some things without other things. But it appears that everything we've done to this point has all been an academic assessment, and then to worry about what we do with those who can't perform in the academic world. We also need to be focused on providing career opportunities for those people who can become the superior craftsmen, mechanics in that role, because they think differently, but they think in a much more complex manner. I mean, just try laying out a big, complex mechanical project, and that is, in many cases, many of us, like you said, Mike, can't do that. So we have to realize that needs to be considered as we do the work you're doing, and as you have this robust conversation that it's included.
We're not talking about any qualitative difference in intelligence between people in a career and technical education track and an academic track. We are talking about students who lack basic literacy skills and can't even do the things that you're describing because they can't read they can't read simple instructions. they can't make out an invoice. We're talking about trying to find ways to help those people as well. I'm talking about. We're talking about, that's why I said 8th grade level of literacy and computational skills. Because, Mike, we're talking about students who think about going to our community colleges who couldn't read what's required in level 1 certification programs. And we're saying we cannot discard or ignore or fail to try to help potential students at any level of basic literacy and computational skills. We're trying to figure out ways to help everybody.
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. What I would caution as we look at the data of 10,000 test takers is to look at their high school graduation date. And I'd be interested in knowing that information with regards to, in particular, Mr. Black. We may be seeing recent high school graduates who are testing into ABE. I would venture to say they should have a higher literacy rate than 8th grade. And my fear is with House Bill 5 and the additional, speaking of tracking, Commissioner, the additional pathways for students and the concern of rigor is that we could see more and more high school graduates potentially testing into ABE. And I don't believe in any of our regions that we would say, well, then really they should be going to ABE. I have a fundamental issue and concern if that's the case and that's what we're seeing. So with the students that are testing the preliminary, and along the border, ELL and issues of that nature, our preliminary data shows 43% of our students are testing into ABE on the new TSI assessment in mathematics, but nowhere near the border, 80% of their students are testing into ABE on the new TSI.
Do you know where in the ABE spectrum or just ABE?
Just ABE.
Because what we've seen so far, at least, are that the majority of testers who are testing into ABE actually end up testing into the DE range.
Yeah, they're clustered at the top of the ABE range and the bottom of the DE range.
And the ABE test itself overlaps with a DE level. So originally, I think it was going to stop lower, and we requested that the diagnostic go up to and through the DE level. So you actually have students who test down into ABE, have to do the ABE test, go through that, and manage by the end of that test to test into developmental ed levels. So we do see a clustering at the top. So it may be, it's a good question to ask.
If I could make the resources in place already, if they are all clustered at that end, you may in fact have the resources available, which I think you were suggesting last time, Mimi. But again, they probably should be in developmental ed, and that may be the case for virtually everyone at an individual institution, that they're clustered at that point.
And remember that
we won't know. That will vary by school.
The data numbers are only through September, and we are continuing this testing, so we would have larger numbers. But I think what's important to remember, and it's exactly what the commissioner said, this responsibility or this judgment will lie in your hands because you know your schools, you know what you have to offer. But I think in our holistic advising process, what we're trying to do is not say to you, these are AB students, you're going to provide for them differently. These are Dev Ed, and you're going to provide for them differently. With your holistic advising, you will make the choices based on what the skill level is that the student has or doesn't have. And this is where you can decide, this is a student who would do well in this level 1 certificate. This is a student based on the interest and based on where they have strong skills or weaker skills. What can we remediate to help them get to where they want to go? And it does not mean an associate's degree. So it's just opening the spectrum to giving you more information to better serve, better identify placements for students. We are not coming to you to say this is where you will have to put the student. Those decisions will be yours based on what you see in that profile. And for the students who are not tested who go into a level 1 certificate, the question has also been raised. Could we use a TSI as a diagnostic profile to see where we might need to help students, where some of these certificates really have rigor? We are not trying to diminish rigor. What we're trying to do is open the door to really be able to serve where we can, and where we can't, where your institution cannot, is there someone in the community through the TWC programs, the federal programs, can they be better served? So it's opening up lots of questions, and I think, Dr. Serrata, what you're saying too, and I even said to the commissioner, opens up a larger question. You get students out of high school who are coming to you who already have diagnosed learning disabilities. And then it becomes a different picture of how you look at that student and how can you best help them, so that when they take a test, they may not show as well, but it's a bigger agenda to have to look at. So what we're trying to do is really do the best we can to help you make the best choices for the students that you serve with the programs that you have available in your school or in your communities.
Well, I think
Chairman, I'm not trying to be argumentative at all, please. I'm just looking for nuggets in all of this conversation. When you tell me that it seems your testing is concentrating in that, that area that is just at the top of ABE or at the bottom of DE, that's kind of the case it's been all along. And yet, if we look at that group, our success and our performance has been very low. So, are we looking at ways to be able to change that? And that's the big question there. If you're verifying what we already know, and our programs are not being successful, the resources we're putting into it are not being successful, so what are we going to do differently?
Well, I think that's a great point, and I think what we're saying is, well, are we going to change the student? Are we going to change the organization? And I think the commissioner has long been pushing for us to change the organization and do both, have higher rigor, have better students coming out, and that was part of the reason I certainly applaud both commissioners speaking to the demonstrable evidence of higher rigor at high school and seeing a more and more prepared student. All of our fear is that if we, with HB5, that we could potentially see that falling. But we have to do it differently. I certainly applaud the integrated reading and writing, which will accelerate the new Mathways project that all of us are in favor of and moving forward. We said, you're right, we would see that level, but we didn't change our pedagogy or what we were doing in the classroom. We're finally doing those things, and I applaud the commissioner and his team for pushing us to do those individual areas.
And I hate to do this, but we've got another topic that's very important, and I want to respect our timelines. And I just want to add one thing. I'm not near as up on this as you guys are. But I think, isn't this the deal? I know that Arch School was concerned because we had about a third of the people testing into that. And if we put them in ABE, then they can't get Pell Grants. And then we're in big trouble. So what I'd like to say is I think this is the topic we need to have on our agenda, at least for the next 3 meetings, okay? And I thank you for your time, and I wish we could spend more time on this. But did you want to?
I just wanted to bring one last comment. Yeah. And this is more that the Texas Workforce Commission has shared with us their draft rules for ABE, and I would like to go ahead and share that with you all. They are going to be posted at the end of the month for official comment, but the Workforce Commission has asked us to share them widely at this point. So I just wanted to bring that also
Gary,
to your
will
attention.
you make sure everybody gets copy of that when it gets posted? Well, I really do thank you and appreciate what y'all brought to us on this and appreciate the discussion here. And it sounds like, to me, this kind of leads into what the main next topic I wanted to do. And I wanted to get your presentation so we would be sure and get that anyway. So I skipped over the topic of basically what does this board do next, and maybe we're kind of getting into that. We now have a charge that I think everybody's comfortable with, right? And so
Now, how are we going to get this committee to function, get our direction, how we start working on things? And I think up to now, we've just been heading toward that. Does anybody have any suggestions on the next step for our committee?
Madam Chair,
Oh, wait, can we?
the previous discussion is very interesting, and I think one of the things that I would ask us to look at in future agenda items is we are designated as community colleges. Each one of us is in a taxing district for that specific community. And the community has specific needs that may or may not have anything to do with ABE or TSI. There may be industries out there that say, we need this kind of skill, we need this kind of person on our workforce. In conjunction with the Texas Workforce Commission, those kinds of things are something that's important to us as our base. Now, in our specific area, we treat students a little bit different because most of our students are non-traditional students. The percentage of people from high school that come directly to college is not near as much as those who have been out of high school for several years and say, gee whiz, if I'm going to move up in the world, I need to better my skills. I need to better my education. So some of the contractors that we work with, just give you a small example, is small arms maintenance. We have a school in Vilsack, Germany. We have one in Osaka, Japan. We have one in Fort Hood, Texas. We get students in there who probably don't read above the 8th grade level. But by golly, they can disassemble and assemble a machine gun. I mean, that's what we're teaching. And I think we need to focus on those non-traditional students when we're looking at the total assessment. We just can't say you're in high school, you didn't do good in high school because you didn't pay attention or you didn't go to class, and say that's the kind of student we work with. That's not true. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have any idea of the next step we take in doing this? Yes.
I think we have not talked very much at the state level about the ramifications of HB 5 for two-year institutions. The focus has been primarily on universities. And I think two-year institutions have a very significant role to play in HB 5 in terms of helping local school districts develop courses that meet the local option provision. I think we've underestimated the potential role of two-year institutions in providing professional development to in-service teachers. I think there's some other critical issues. I would like to have a full conversation about the role of two-year institutions in implementing HB 5.
Okay.
Excellent.
If we were to do that, is there a way that Commissioner Williams could send over someone to talk with us about it?
I would think so. I would guess I'll be able to find somebody. I don't know if it would be the person who's necessarily best informed, but yeah, we'll certainly try to get somebody.
In thinking of the next step, I think maybe with the help of you and David and the rest of the staff, I would like to see what specific items you think would be good for us to work on, it, like the one you just mentioned. I'm wondering, do we then break down into a smaller committee, maybe 3 or 4 people, to work on the different issues? Any ideas?
Well, I suggest we roll out the issues, and I think how to proceed for this leadership council to come up with recommendations about how to handle those challenges will come out. I don't think there's one approach for every issue.
Mimi? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mimi.
Oh, I was just looking at the task assigned in the charge, and my question was, it says in collaboration with the Board's Undergraduate Education Advisory Committee. How is that collaboration going to be realized? I guess this was my question.
I actually raised that issue myself. I think we have to work that out, but there are a number of issues I've heard you bringing up that the Undergraduate Education Advisory Committee has a specific charge, and I think where there are things that come up where you guys are sort of heading in a similar direction that we need to perhaps have the chair of that committee come and meet with you. There are different ways we can do that, but there isn't a specific issue right now, but I can anticipate there'll be some things you're interested in where you were perhaps wanting to make recommendations to the board. But if we had our Undergraduate Education Advisory Committee making recommendations on a similar area, particularly if they didn't fit with each other, that you'd want to sit and talk about them together, and we could do that through this meeting that you guys have. Or if you were interested to have you come and present some issues to them you'd like for them to consider.
I was just, Marie, in answer to your question, how do we move forward? I kept going back to the tasks I see on the charge, saying, okay, how do we approach
Now
these?
that we have a charge.
They're more conceptual than they are working on them type things. But I think item 2 is very important, which is to identify areas to reinforce a distinctive mission, and that's one in collaboration with. So I think the actual selection of topics will help drive that. The HB5 is a good example of a very important topic to help drive that, just as some of the other charges that are under study right now that were asked for by the legislature relative to community colleges.
I think one of the challenges in writing rules is that rules for a group like this be written in such a way that you're given general guidance, but they're not so restrictive that you don't have the ability to bring up any topics you'd like on your own. And so they're done in that way specifically so that you've already raised some issues that we might not have anticipated, and I think that's important to be aware of. But I think, as you meet a little more, you're going to define some areas, and we'll know specifically what's going on with that committee. And if you'd like, at some point, we could either have a staff member or chair of that committee share with you the specific work they're dealing with now. In fact, Rex was on that committee in the past, but I think it's a very important committee, and it's a committee composed completely of individuals from both community colleges and universities. And so that's a prime group. For example, if you ever want to get into some transfer issues, you've got all sectors there at the same table in equal numbers, and they could provide a venue perhaps even for you to help us identify some charges for them to work on.
And I'm sure they have minutes that might be.
And I think transfer issues is one of the things we're interested in, right? Let's just real quick, starting with you, Mimi.
I am interested in hearing continuous progress reports from the 2 workforce studies that the coordinating board is in kicking off relative to the last legislative session. One looking at nursing, and the other looking at, workforce supply and demand. Is that correct? Yeah.
It's really part of the same study.
Is it? Okay.
And I think if you haven't been, you will be contacted on that.
No,
Correct?
I have, but I'm interested in this group, hearing
yeah.
How that's going and following that progress and helping influence that.
I think part of
development.
The issue there will be your meeting dates. We have to have a draft report done in March for that report, which gives us several months, in fact, to get more feedback. And it could be, we'd like for you to be able to give some feedback as soon as possible, but I don't know, when is your next meeting scheduled?
January.
Well, we should be able to give you some good feedback in January.
And I think it's very important that be on the January agenda if March is your deadline.
Yeah, and one reason we have that deadline is we wanted to make sure with the draft, there were at least a couple of months for everybody, once a draft is settled in, to be able to review it. But we do want to have input earlier, so that thanks for bringing it up. I think we should have something. It won't be nearly a finished product, but you'll be able to hear a lot about it in January, I think. And
Sure.
we're working on that, by the way, with RAND, the RAND Corporation, and the Workforce Commission.
George?
Two things. One, we're going to talk about House Bill 5. I think that if we could have a summary of bulleted points that are in layman's terms instead of legislative ease, that the commissioner and David and the co-board thinks it's important for us as a community, as two-year stakeholders to look at, number one. Number two, I'd like to begin to think about a strategy of what we're going to go to the legislative group with when we get through with this next year and a half's worth of work. In other words, what do we want to get to what is the goal to go to our legislators with in order to affect legislative change that is necessary to do what we end up deciding as a group. And when I say not just our committee, but also the co-board together working for the betterment of the two-year institutions.
And we will go to the co-board and try and get the co-board then to work with us on what our concerns are.
Yes, but if we don't know where we're going.
The committee doesn't go to the legislature. We would go to the co-board.
Okay.
Okay.
Our committee doesn't. I understand.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
I might point out, I don't know what the timing of this. I guess you'll have a meeting in January and March. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you're all probably aware that our community college formula committee is currently working. There's also a community college a group of TAC actually working on some aspects, some recommendations there. So it may be, I don't know if January would be right, but you might want to hear a report at least in March on what that recommendation will be out of the formula committee.
Well, on the HB thing, Gary, couldn't you get that to us ahead of time? Okay, if you will.
There is, Gary, you may not want to watch this. I think I may have mentioned before, in order, I mean, our major policy issue at the last board, I think, was a very good one. And we can give you a link to that, and you can listen to it with great representatives from across all sectors. We think it's one of our better major policy discussions, so it's worth listening to. A lot of the issues will be raised, and it will, if you have time, it will really help prep you, I think, for the next discussion.
And Mimi, you agree, right?
Well, I listened to it, yes, and I guess from that meeting, I'm thinking timelines now. You know, the PEA has said their rules would be coming together about in January, so there's still a lot of unknowns.
State Board of Ed is meeting next week.
Okay.
So we will know hopefully a fair amount more
by January
than we know.
Okay, good.
And also on that, after the meeting, can somebody give us kind of a synopsis on what went on at the meeting?
I would be hard pressed to do that. It was so wide ranging.
You're talking about the
HB5?
The meeting that's coming up tomorrow.
the state board.
I
Do they have that online? I mean, yes. Don't you have to so if you can just send us the connection.
The meeting is on the 20th, and it starts at 9:15 in the morning, and it's a hearing on all the issues that are around HB5 that entities, associations, individuals will be speaking to, because the state board will meet that week. Their rules require 3 readings before they're implemented, which is different from the way we operate in higher ed. So it's true that by January, they should have many of the unanswered questions answered as they move forward. And so the presentation that was given the other day to our board represented not only the state board, because the chair did make the presentation and there is an excellent PowerPoint with it. we had business, industry, university, community college, and secondary education represented, high school. So,
and they have to video their meetings too, don't they?
Well, this one will probably go live. They didn't at the last one that they had, so I'm not sure. But we can certainly let Gary know. I can ask TEA if it is going to be broadcasted. But it is the 20th, and it does start at 9:15 in the morning.
Okay. What would you like to see us work on? And we're past time, so we're going to hurry through.
I just want to make sure that the rolling item, agenda number 9, stays on. And
Yes,
I think there's
Gary got that.
Ample conversation there. That's where I am at this point.
Okay. Do you have any special issues that you would like to?
Well, I'm also on the Formula Advisory Task Force as well. So, I mean, I think if at whatever point we want to bring that information forward, I was unable to attend the last meeting, but I could bring that information forward as a member of both boards if you wanted to talk about anything there. So I'll just put that out there as a kind of a open item.
I agree with what's been said. I also concur with General Weaver's assertion with regards to workforce development. It has to be a continuing item that we need to research. Student success agenda will be a large part of what we continue to tackle.
Mark with the discussion and update on the number 9.
And one of the things that I've heard at a lot of places, including in your meeting that you had when the co-board did their listening tour, was the numbering of courses. I think we should have that included, course numbering system. Okay. Because that's come up evidently at a lot of the co-board meetings. Rex?
I've already said that.
Okay. You're good? Okay. Our next meeting date is January 9th.
And I'd just like to remind you that I hope many of you, we have our regular Higher Education Leadership Conference next week on the 21st and 22nd. And George has pointed out that since the meeting's the day after the State Board of Ed meeting, that hopefully that maybe we could give an update at that meeting from the day before, whether it's me or someone else, maybe Judy. So that's a great suggestion. We'll try to do that. But I hope we'll see you next week.
And yes, you'll see me. Gary pointed out to me that because of the holidays, et cetera, that we probably need to get the agenda, have it at least available for posting the first part of December, right? Yes, so if there's anything special you want on it, and we will get that number 9, let's just keep that one kind of rolling. Anything else? Appreciate your time and effort, and I think we're at least got a direction we're going in now, which I think is a move in the right way. And I want to just say that I appreciate the cooperation that I've gotten with the co-board staff and also with Fred and Harold. I feel more optimistic than I had before, so we're doing good work. Okay, meeting adjourned.